Before 1920, the word robot didn't exist. By 1927, it was one of the most feared words in the English language. This is the story of the first robot panic. Today, AI-powered machines not only work faster than people at repetitive tasks, they are starting to outperform us in the very fields that we once thought that only a human could master. It is easy to think that being scared of robots is a uniquely 21st century problem. Yet this phenomenon is not new at all. In fact, we can trace it back to a particular time and place around 100 years ago. Berlin, January 1927, where an audience of dignitaries and artists sat down for what was at that time the most expensive film ever made. That film was Fritz Lang's Metropolis, and not only would its impact be felt in popular culture for generations to come, it would also serve as the blueprint for every tech panic for the next 100 years. In this video, we'll explore how Metropolis held a mirror up to a society on the brink of collapse, and how the robot panic of 1927 laid the groundwork for our modern obsession with AI and the evil robot archetype. Because in this movie, the arrival of the robot causes apocalyptic scenes. It drives a city to madness, floods the streets, and nearly drowns an entire generation of children before the robot is burned to the stake. But to understand why this specific mechanical nightmare might resonate so deeply with a German audience in 1927, we first have to understand the real-world nightmare that they'd just woken up from. At the time Metropolis was made, Germany was recovering from a post-First World War economic catastrophe. 4 years earlier, in 1923, hyperinflation had crippled the country. A loaf of bread rocketed in price from 160 marks in 1922 to over 200 billion marks only 12 months later. Workers would carry their daily wages back home in wheelbarrows, and the money was worth more as fire kindling than it was as currency. But by 1927, the German economy had turned around. There was a short-lived moment of optimism, the end of the decade even being referred to as the golden age of the Weimar Republic. And it was in this context that Metropolis was made, as Germany experienced a sudden industrial boom off the back of its workers and modern machinery. In one sense, there was a kind of optimism that technology might finally solve every human problem, yet it was also leading people to question where humanity's place was in this new world of machines. And at the centre of this anxiety was the film's most iconic creation, a golden Art Deco effigy that blurred the line between human and machine. The Maschinenmensch in Metropolis is the OG of movie robots, leaving a mark on cinema that is still felt today. Here's Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, explaining the direct link to Star Wars.
The concept of the character was actually based on a film from way back in time, Metropolis by Fritz Lang. And in that film, the powers that be created a fake human to try and encourage the workers to behave. And George and Ralph McQuarrie create something similar. The similarity would be that neither of us, the original actor or myself, could actually move in these costumes very well.
So, if Metropolis inspired Star Wars, then what inspired Metropolis? Well, while the concept of automatons goes way back to Greek mythology, think Talos in Jason and the Argonauts, the actual word robot was brand new. In fact, it was only coined just 7 years earlier in Karel Čapek's 1920 play RUR, Rossum's Universal Robots. In fact, the concept was so fresh that H.G. Wells, in his scathing review of Metropolis, accused Lang of plagiarism, writing, "Čapek's robots have been lifted without an apology." But Wells might have missed the darker point. You see, the word robot comes from the Czech word robota, which literally translates to forced labour or drudgery. From the very beginning, the robot wasn't defined so much by intelligence, rather by slavery. And if history has taught us anything, it's that where there is slavery, there is the constant terrified anticipation of a revolt. In Čapek's play RUR, that revolt does indeed happen. The robots rise up and exterminate the entire human race, leaving only one man alive. But in Metropolis, the threat is different. To understand why an audience in 1927 might be so disturbed, we first have to understand the actual mission of the robot. Rotwang, the mad scientist, he doesn't program the robot to crush the workers with brute force. No, he does something much worse than that. He gives the metal chassis a face, specifically the face of the film's hero, Maria. This is the moment the Maschinenmensch becomes the false Maria, and it's also the moment where this gets really scary for a modern audience, because the first movie robot wasn't a Terminator, it was a deepfake. And just like a modern deepfake, the danger lay in misinformation, not in physical brute strength. Rotwang unleashes the false Maria into the city with a two-pronged strategy designed to tear society apart from the inside. First, she sent into the high society clubs of the ruling class, driving the wealthy men into a lustful, violent frenzy and turning the brains of the city against one another. But her mission in the underground workers' city is much more dangerous. She appears to the exhausted workers who look up to the real Maria as their saint-like hero pacifist. But this imposter uses the credibility of the real Maria to radicalise the followers. She preaches hate, she incites violence, she tells them to destroy the very machines that keep their city alive. It's a cautionary tale for the information age, realised in 1927. It's about an influencer who isn't real, inciting a riot that is. And naturally, this leads to the film's chaotic climax. The mob, realising they've been tricked and their children nearly drowned, turn on the false Maria. They capture her, they tie her to a stake, and they burn her. But as the flames consume her flesh, she doesn't scream, she laughs, and slowly the human disguise melts away, revealing the cold metallic droid underneath. The mob is left staring at a machine. The panic is over, but the damage is done. Now, you might think that a film that is as revered as it is today, with so much spectacle and relevance to the time it was made, would be an instant hit. But you'd be dead wrong. Upon its release in January 1927, Metropolis was a box office flop. It was the most expensive film ever made, and it cost around 5 million Reichsmarks, but only made back a fraction of that. It nearly bankrupted the studio, and the film's producer, Erich Pommer, lost his job before filming even finished. Critics tore it apart. We already heard H.G. Wells' opinion, but he wasn't alone. The New York Times called it foolish, and the film's central message, that the head, the thinkers, and the hands, the workers, must be mediated by the heart, was mocked as naive and simplistic. And tragically, history would prove the critics right, because the heart never arrived. The film's release coincided with the end of that short-lived German optimism. The American loans that had propped up the Weimar economy dried up as investors chased the booming US stock market. When Wall Street finally crashed in 1929, the Great Depression swept across Germany, bringing economic misery that paved the way for the rise of the Nazi Party. In a final bitter irony, Thea von Harbu, Fritz Lang's wife and the woman who wrote the screenplay's message of love and unity, would eventually join the Nazi Party herself, while Lang fled the country. The film was so disliked at the time that it was butchered and re-edited against Lang's will. For decades, the original uncut version was thought to be lost forever, only pieced back together in 2008 after a miracle discovery of a dusty reel in a museum in Argentina. But while the movie may have flopped in 1927, its central idea, the robot, endured. That golden effigy became the mother of all science fiction. She gave birth to C-3PO, the Terminator, and the very concept of the android. But more importantly, Metropolis gave us the script for how to panic about robots. Looking back at the film nearly 100 years later, the scariest thing isn't actually the robot itself. No, it's the way that the humans were so easily manipulated by it. The robot didn't fire a single shot. It simply held up a mirror to the city's worst impulses, lust, rage and fear, and let the humans destroy themselves. As we face down our own robot panic today with bots, algorithms and deep fakes designed to enrage us, that 1927 warning feels pretty chilling to me. The machine might be the spark, but the fire, that's on us. Thanks for watching.